Hello everyone. This is a tutorial video on how to generate a box and whisker plot as seen here on the screen. This is my first and only tutorial video, and the reason I'm doing it is because it took me quite a while to figure out how to do this. I had some trouble. I tried a couple different things. I had trouble getting exactly what I wanted, and I was a bit surprised that there weren't thousands of videos showing this. So anyway, I decided to make one because it took me quite a while to get this figured out. There could be videos showing exactly this or even showing an easier way. I don't know. I didn't find it, but here we are. So um, this is overall what I'm going to show you how to generate using Excel. You can also do this in PowerPoint using Excel. I found some videos previously on how you could generate a box plot using a bar chart and then convert it to a stock chart and this and that and whatever else. But those were always seeming to be missing at least one component that I was looking to incorporate into mine. And so they ended up not really working out. Then I found out that Excel 2016 gives you the option of generating a box plot. They added that feature in the options of charts to choose from, but that one also is lacking a couple of things, and you're limited with the modifications and things like that. So I'll go through a couple of those just to show you kind of the pros and cons and what I ran into when looking into this. But overall, this is what we're going to generate today. So in Excel, I'm gonna delete this and show you how I built that from scratch. Um, so using Excel, here I have my data set. This, so column A would be um, the series numbers. I have four series, so one, two, three, four. Column B is individual data for each of those groups. You can consider each row to be, say, a patient. If we go back and look at my original, I have a total of five groups here. If this was presenting data for, say, a clinical trial or something like that, group one could be, say, the placebo group, and then you could have four groups of four different treatment arms within the study, and each of these being group two, three, four, and five individual patient groups. So looking at this data, each row would be considered an individual patient. Here's the group number that they're in, and here's their value, their data set, or I'm sorry, the data point for a variable XYZ, whatever the variable is. So if we go up to insert, we're going to choose the insert statistic chart. And down here you can see that Excel 16 added the option for a box and whisker chart. So what this does is this generates, let's see what data it selected. So what this did automatically is it selected all of my data here, and it generated two box plots based on column A and column B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to design, select data, and you can see there's two series. So what I want to have is a total of four series because I have four groups. So I'm going to remove both of these things. I'm going to do the first two just to show you um, how I generated this using this. So series name, the first one, we'll call this one since it's group one. The series values we're going to go over, and we're going to highlight all of the data points within group one. And you can see that we have the first box plot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a second one just to show you um, two. I'm not going to do the full four just to keep this brief. The series values, we're going to go down and we're going to select all of the values for group number two. Click click OK again. And here we have our box plots for the two groups. So similar to any other chart that you're using in Excel, you can modify the chart title, the axes label, the range of the axes, and things like that. Um, but the two main components that made this not be able to work for me. So there's two things. One is if we want to change, say, the shading of this, we can do that, but we're kind of limited. So you have a couple of options here. Show inner points shows all of the individual data points, and if we turn that off, we can see that this group does not have all of the individual data points where this group does. So that's something you can turn on and off. Show the outlier points. You can turn that on and off, and you can see that there's one outlier in the group here that is presenting. And you can also, the third option here is showing the mean marker. And so you can see there is the X there for designating the mean of the data set. So we can turn that on and off. And if we want to change the shading, we go up here just like this is any other chart, and you choose solid fill, and you can change this color to green, red, purple, whatever you want. So we're gonna change this to red, and the border we're gonna change to black. Now the one thing is that we're limited. If we go back to the one I generated here, you can see I have the box is shaded red. It has no border. The whiskers are a hatched black line. The outliers are a black circle with no fill. We have a solid black line for the median. We have an X for the mean, and we can modify any of these. I can have the whiskers be a solid purple line, the mean value be a brown box, whatever. You can change all of the different components of this. But in Excel 2016, you can only change the shading of the box plot and the border color, and that's really it. The other thing, and this was the the biggest downside to this, is we don't know exactly what Excel did with my data set to calculate what the mean, what the median, what constitutes the box, what do the whiskers designate, what is how it calculated this outlier. I generated this plot with my data set and I compared it to what I generated using the method that I'm going to show you here in a minute, and they look to be very similar, but we don't know exactly what Excel did to my data set, and we don't know how it specified what is considered an outlier, what the whiskers represents, which is, I don't know what it did. So, I mean, the answer could be there somewhere. I didn't find it, and eventually I gave up. But those two things combined made me look further because this wasn't going to work for me. As far as being able to specify where the whiskers are drawn, what is considered an outlier, the main reason that that is important and was important for me is there are multiple ways that people can generate these box plots. Typically, the box represents the interquartile range. So you have the IQR here in the box. The whiskers can specify different data values. Sometimes this is the min and max, sometimes it's the 10th and 90th percentile. For the purposes of my data set, the whiskers represented the high and low, or the min and max values that fell within the upper and lower limits of my data set. And the upper, lower, and limits I calculated as the interquartile range plus 1.5 times interquartile range. So that gave me the upper and lower limits. Anything that fell within there was considered the min and max. Anything that fell outside of the upper or lower limits was considered an outlier. So again, with Excel 16, you can't really change that. And I don't know exactly how Excel calculated this. So you're really kind of unsure on that part of it. Whereas in my example, you can make these whatever you want, which is really what I was looking for. So, moving on to how I put this together, this is a group of XY scatter plots. So I have 5 groups here. Each group consists of 6 XY scatter plots. And what I did is you're kind of tricking Excel into displaying the data how you want it to. And if we go over to this tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of the concept of how this works, and you can probably figure out what I did from this concept. But if not, I'll go ahead and I'm going to generate this and show you step by step how I did that. But if we go and we insert a X and Y scatter plot, so scatter with straight lines and markers, and go up to select our data, and the data range is this right here. We can see that we have this nice linear line with a slope of 1. And if we, so another way that we can do this is if we have the Y values being exactly the same as in the second data set I have here, if we go up to design and select data, and we select this data set instead, we can see that we have a straight horizontal line of slope 0. Now, if we want to show a vertical line, we do something very similar, except we have, instead of the y-axis values being constant, we have the x-axis values being constant. And here we have a linear vertical line. So this is essentially what we're going to turn into our box and whisker plots, showing multiple series with an x value of 3, and each of those series we're going to modify so that it displays differently. So one of those is going to be a straight line, a very, very wide line, vertical line. The whiskers are going to be a black hatched line with an error bar on it, and the outliers are going to be an individual data point. And again, I'll get to that in the next example. So in order to have multiple box plots in one chart, what we do is we just add another series. So if we go up here to select data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a series. And series name, we're going to call this, I don't know, series 2. The X values are going to be constant at 1, and the Y values are going to be from 1 to 4. And here we have our 2 vertical lines. So here you can kind of see the concept of what we're going to be doing in the next tab over. So if we go to generating this using the XY scatter plots, here we have my data set. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to do 2 groups again. So here we have the group number, we have group number 1, group number 2, and then the values for each individual case for both groups 1 and 2. So and again, this is a little bit tedious, but you have the flexibility to basically have the chart display however you want. So the things that you're going to need for this, the primary components of the plot is going to be, and I usually work from top to bottom. So you have the high whisker, which is going to be your the upper limit whisker. You have the interquartile range, which is Q2 and Q3, and this is going to be your box. And then the low whisker is going to be just that, the low whisker. The median is going to be a single data point. The mean is also going to be a single data point. Down here is where I calculate my upper and lower limits so that I can determine what is considered an outlier. And then down here, finally, we have the outlier values. So, similar to what I did in this concept example, you can see the x axis values are 1 and 3. And earlier I said that each box plot is consists of a total of 6 series on top of each other. So if we go over here, these values 1 all the way down here, and then 2, these are going to be um, the two plots within my figure. This is going to be the first one, and this is going to be the second one. So you can see the x-axis values are going to be the same going all the way down. And if you have multiple outliers, you just make as many as you need to. But for the purposes of this, we have one outlier per group. So to start generating this, we're going to go over and we're going to generate an XY scatter. And you can see that I already selected some of my data. So what we're going to do first is go up to design, select data, and we're going to remove these. So we're going to start completely from scratch. So just to allow you to see how this is made, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add one. And this series name I'm going to call interquartile range for group 1. The x-axis values are going to be 1, and the y-axis values are going to be here. Now, what I did, just to back up for 1 minute, what I did is I calculated all of these values beforehand because um, everyone knows how to calculate the mean, median, and so on. So what I just to keep this brief, I calculated all these beforehand. So you can see here we have our interquartile range. Now, in order to make this look like the box in the previous examples, is we're going to we're going to click on series options and we're going to go to line. This line we want to say make it a gray color. And the way to get this to display as a box is we're going to try, say, third, we're going to adjust the width. And that may be a little bit too skinny, so we're going to go with, let's go with 50. And you can see that the edges are rounded. So down here you have can type. I don't know what that means, but if you choose flat, it gives you a perfectly square box. So the key here is you're going to have a vertical line with a width of 50. Now, if you go up to marker, so we don't really want these markers here. So these are the data points. If you look, the data points are negative 1.2 and positive 0.53. So we don't want those. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to marker options. And we're going to choose none. Now we have just the box. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the, actually that gets rid of the entire axis. I'm going to get rid of the numbers on this, or the labels. We're going to choose none because we don't need those. And I'm also going to get rid of this because we don't need this. But what we are going to do is we're going to insert a text box, and we're going to name this group 1. And there could be a way that you label these differently, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to label this using a text box. Now, here we have the interquartile range of this box bus. So now we're gonna add the low whisker. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up to design, and we're going to select data, and we're going to add a series, and the series name, whoops, why did that disappear? We're going to add a series name, and this is going to be, so we're going to add another series on top of this. This series name is going to be high whisker for group 1. The x-axis value is going to be 1, and the y-axis values, we're going to choose these. Now we see that we have a solid line for the upper whisker. And what I'm going to do over here is, for marker options, we have none, which what I did is I chose a solid line for the data markers, and the border color, we're going to call that black, and then the solid, we're going to choose black as well. And then for the line, what we're going to do is we're going to have this be a black line that is square dot, so we'll just call that hatched. And you can make this as wide as you want. What I did is I usually kept it at like 1.5 or something like that. So now the only downside with this that we need to take care of is we have, remember we chose the marker as this flat line here, but we don't want both of them. We don't want this one down here. So if you click on this series and then click again, you can select just that marker. And if you go up and choose none, it will get rid of just that one marker. So now we have the box with the hatched black line and a flat line as the endpoint. So to be brief, we're going to go in and we're going to select data, and we're going to add series name low whisker for group 1. We're going to select the x-axis values, and then we're going to select the y-axis values. And again, in here, just to be quick, we can go in and choose the marker that we want. We're going to have a fill of black and a border of black. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to select just that one. Oops. Just that one. Go to marker options, choose none. And then we can go ahead and select that series again. We can go to the line, tell it to be a solid black line that is hatched with a width of 1.5. And there we have our lower whisker. So this is starting to look a little bit similar to what we have here. We have the box, we have the upper and lower whiskers. And what I did to determine what is going to be considered an outlier is, because the next step is to, well, we have the mean and the median, and we have the outliers. So my calculation that I use to determine an outlier is 1.5 times the interquartile range. So the interquartile range is going to be, oops, I'm going to do equal this minus this. That is our interquartile range. And then 1.5 times that, we go equal this times 1.5 gives us this. Now the upper limit is going to be our quartile 3 range, which is this value, plus our value that we got here of 1.5 times the interquartile range, and we get this 0.315. Now, if we go over here and we look at our data set values for group 1, the upper limit that I use is 0.3125. So I sorted this from low to high, so I can go down here and see if I have any values of that are greater than 0.3125, and it looks like I don't. But for the purposes of this, what I'm going to do is I threw in a value. No, I got to back up for a minute. So that's for the upper limit. The lower limit, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to our Q1 minus the value here, which is 1.5 times the IQR, and that gave me the lower limit of negative 0.3795. And I have one value that is outside of that lower limit, which is negative 0.55, which is going to be our single outlier for this group. So that's how I got, how I ran the calculation to determine what is considered an outlier. So if we go back over to here and we want to display this outlier, we do the same thing. Go into select data. We're going to add a data series. This is going to be outlier for group 1. The X value is going to be 1. And the Y value, we're going to go over here and we're going to select this right here. Now, if we look at what happened in our plot, it's not displayed right now because it's a single data point. So what you have to do is come up here and go to outlier 1, and there we can see it selected it because it wasn't being displayed since it's a single data point. So what we're going to do is the line, there's going to be no line because it's only a single data point. The marker, we're going to call this a circle. We're going to bump it up in size a little bit. There's going to be no fill and a solid fill border with a color of black and say a border width of 1. So here we have our one outlier. And if we have multiple outliers, so I'm going to do, let's see, the lower limit is 0.37 or negative 0.379. I'm going to say we have a negative 0.4, and then we also have a negative 0.3. So what I do is I go up to design, select data. This outlier 1 series, we're going to edit that. So it's still called outlier 1, still has an X value of 1, but now we have a total of 3 outliers. So I'm going to select all of these. And the reason that is not showing is because I have to select 3. Since I have 3 data points, I have to select 3 X values. And then 3 Y values. And here we have the 3 outliers. Now those look a little bit big comparatively, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up to marker options, drop this down a little bit, and now it's a little bit sized a little bit better. So here we have the box, we have the whiskers, we have the outliers. I showed you how I determined what the high and low whiskers are, how I determine what an outlier is. And again, these can all be modified. If you all you have to do is change these values. If you want to have the whiskers be the min and max, you can put the min and max values in here, or you can even run a calculation. So this could be, say, a max of your entire group one data points. Now, the last two things we need are the mean and the median. So we're going to start with the mean. So the reason I have a couple extra lines here is there's a little bit of a trick to having the mean display how you want. There's two ways that you can go about this. One is if you go up and you just add another series. So we're going to add series and call this median for group one. The x value is going to be 1, and the y value is going to be negative 0.08. And again, since it's a single data point, it's not showing up, so we have to select median group 1. There's going to be, and you see here, it's selected it, but it's just not visible because it's a single data point. We can have this be a single marker, similar to how we did it with the outlier. We can have, say, a line with a fill of black and also a border of black. Here is our median marker. So the one way you can do this is have this line be here, but if we want to have, like I did previously, if we want to have a line going across the entire box, what you have to do is draw that in, which is kind of a pain. So insert shapes, draw a line, something similar like this, and then to format that shape outline, I want that to be black, and say we want this to be a little bit thicker. So that's one way you can have the median line go all the way across. I don't necessarily like this because what I found is that when I drew this line, I drew it a little bit thinner, and sometimes you can see that marker behind it. And you're also not exactly at that data point. Probably nobody will ever notice, but still, it's not exact. And if you're like me and you want things as exact as you can get them, then you go about this a different way. And what we're going to do is we are going to essentially make a very, very short line. So similar to how we made this box, we had a line, a vertical line from, say, negative 0.1, whatever that is, up to 0.05 or whatever that value was, and we made it a width of 50. We're going to do the very same thing with this, but we're going to cheat a little bit. So a single data point is negative 0.08. We're going to say that this line is from negative 0.09 to negative 0.07. And these are still with an x-axis of 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to select our data again, and I'm going to go down to median, and I'm going to edit this so the x-axis values are 1 and the y-axis values are the 3 there. And the reason that I chose these 3 is because we want to have, well, here, let me show you what I did first. Is here we have this series selected. We're going to choose no markers. So we have just essentially this vertical line. And it's not really, it's a very short vertical line because we don't want this to be very thick. But what we can do is this is the trick. We want this to be a solid black line with a width of 50. And again, we go down here, we choose flat. That's going to give us our line that is exactly the width of the box. But we see that it's a little bit thick. So all you have to do is modify these a little bit. So we're going to say this is negative 0.085 and negative 0.075. That's going to give us a little bit of a shorter line, and that's a little bit more in line with what I'm looking for. So you just go, so the median value is negative 0.8. You go a little bit below that and a little bit above that, and it's going to generate a very, very short line. And then you just give that line a width that matches your box, which in this case it's 50. And there you have it. So again, that's the long way, the long description of how I put these together. So we have the upper whisker, which is 1, the box, which is 2, the median, which is 3, the lower whisker, which is 5, and the outliers, which is 6. So there's a total of 6 series, all with an x-axis value of 1, and they're all on top of each other. Now, if we want to have the mean, so if we want to do a 7th, and we want to have the mean value in there, we can go up again, just like we've done before. I'm going to add series name is going to be mean 1, x-axis value is 1, and the y-axis value is negative 0.09. And just like we did before, since it's a single data point, choose mean. And there we see that it's selected. Marker options, we're going to have this be a X. And it's going to have a fill and a line of black. And I always had a little bit of trouble with having this actually change. I don't know why. And see, now it's not really, it's not showing up for some reason. So there's a quirk within Excel that um, doesn't let you choose that, but let's choose a triangle, or we'll choose a diamond. Make it a little bit smaller, and there we have. So we have the median line, and then we have a single data point for the mean value. And repeat that for as many groups as you have, and there's your box and whisker plots, and you can have something that looks like this once you go ahead and you get rid of the grid lines, you modify your y-axis bounds, and color everything as you like. And again, these are the group names down here, text boxes, and there you have it. So again, the main benefit of doing this using XY scatter plots, like I just showed you, is you can change the characteristics of each of them. So you can have each box be a little bit different color. You can have the mean data markers, any shape you want. You can have the median line different. The whiskers, you can have hatched solid lines, different colors. The endpoints to be a little bit different. You can also have the outliers at any values that you want. So you can basically have this look exact. You can put whatever data you want to have this display. So the whiskers can be, like I calculated, they can be the min and max within your data sets. They can be the 10 and 90th percentile, whatever you want. So you have pretty much unlimited options for making this display however you want. So that's it. That's how I did this. Again, there might be an easier way. If there is, I couldn't find it. If you know of an easier way or any other things that you've seen or heard or do yourself, feel free to leave it in the comments. And yeah, that's everything. So, again, any suggestions, comments, whatever, go ahead and leave that in the comments and I'll take a look. And thanks.